You're listening to the Subrogation Support Network, a podcast from Mathieson, Wickert & Layer, America's subrogation law firm, with dissemination of new developments and changes in subrogation law, as well as emerging trends and best practices. Here's your host, Ashton Kirsch.
Hello, everybody. This is Ashton Kirsch joining you today for another eventful and interesting podcast with the Subrogation Support Network. Today, it is my pleasure to have Jim Furking from Paradigm join me today. Paradigm is really a fascinating company, ahead of their time in many ways. They're a value-based partner helping workers' compensation carriers deal with catastrophic workers' compensation injuries. They're doing some really unique and interesting things. Ultimately, this isn't truly subrogation related, definitely claims related. But, Jim and I were talking recently at a conference, and what he was telling me about everything they're doing, I just figured it was totally worth us having a conversation like this because truthfully, Jim, I found it fascinating and I thought it would be worth the audience here having that opportunity to hear a little bit about what you're doing. So, Jim, thanks for joining us.
Ashton, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Beautiful. So, Jim, tell me a little bit about yourself and your role with Paradigm.
Well, myself, grew up in Missouri. I've been a Midwesterner my whole life, live in the Milwaukee area now. Started my career out of college with Liberty Mutual. I was at Liberty Mutual for 23 years. I started in loss prevention and then got into sales and sales management. And again, did that for 23 years. Then became a broker at Willis Towers Watson, working in property casualty here in the Milwaukee area. And then in 2019, joined Paradigm, where I'm in my current role, began in the sales group, and now I run the catastrophic sales unit, the legacy piece for Paradigm. I handle sales operations for them across the country.
And I forgot to even mention there. Yeah, you're also a fellow Wisconsinite, up here
right.
above the cheddar curtain and in the land of beer and cheese.
And September, so we're already looking for snowflakes.
You're a Packers fan, right?
Well, I am a transplant. I'm a Chiefs guy, but you cannot live here and not appreciate the Packers. But what I have learned, it would do a disservice to fandom if I called myself a Packers fan, because Packers fan are a rare breed, and I would not shame them by pulling myself into that group.
That's right. Hey, if you said Bears, I probably would have kicked you off the podcast.
Absolutely.
For all of those Bears, that's not true. That's not true. We definitely have had some of my friends from south of the border join us before. So
hey, we all have our faults.
So, Jim, back to the subject at hand. Tell me a little bit about Paradigm and what services are provided.
Yeah, it's a very, you prefaced it well, Ashton. It's a very unique company. And, really back to its origins, it started in 1991. Dr. Nathan Cope was the director of physical medicine at Stanford University Medical Center. And he was a brain surgeon, and he handled workers' compensation brain injuries. And they would have these horrific cases. And they would get them on a path to recovery. And then too often, months later, that same injured worker would come back and be as bad as they were before, from a clinical standpoint. And he really just came to see that the workers' compensation industry does many things well, and it's kept industry afloat for a lot of years, but it's not good at high acuity catastrophic care. There are just too many moving pieces. It requires you to be very, very nimble. And so he bandaged together a group of doctor friends. He handled brain injuries. He had an orthopedic person, a burn person, a doctor, and they started a company to treat these high acuity catastrophic cases. And these are very rare. These are, from the workers' compensation world, 3 out of every 1,000 claims. But they require a high degree of care and integration. They are very, very risk sensitive and can go in a lot of different directions. And so he founded Paradigm in 1991 to partner with insurance carriers to handle these. And we've grown through the years, and now here we are in 2023, continuing to grow and expand, but really help our carrier partners and injured workers and their families ultimately restore the best possible life that they can.
So, not to put you on the spot here, but can you give me some sort of example so that the audience can truly understand a bit about how Paradigm fits into this picture, right? Obviously, an employee is injured somewhere on the job. Their employer brings in their work comp carrier, the workers' compensation carrier, reviews the claim and maybe starts paying benefits. Where does Paradigm fit in?
Absolutely. We come in as quickly as possible. And the first delineator is we strictly handle the medical portion of the case. The indemnity payments and all are still handled by the carrier. And we don't take anything over. This isn't a lost portfolio transfer. That carrier owns the case. But we become their catastrophic arm in that they bring us this case. We will take a look at it. We'll begin paying the medical bills. And we offer them, as if we move forward with the contract, three great certainties. These cases are so uncertain because they're expensive, they're time consuming, and you never know what you're getting on the back end. And we're able to come in and offer a fixed medical cost. We will take a look at this case and say for a 35-year-old truck driver in Oklahoma, based on this level of injury, all of our 30 years of doing this tells you that the case is going to be medically between 1.1 and 2.8 million dollars. And for 1.6 million, we will handle all of the medical bills that handle with that case. We will do all of the legwork along with you. We don't take it over. We work with the carrier, but we take care of all of the logistics to get them to the right places, the right people. And then we offer a guaranteed outcome on the back end. So we guarantee a release to return to work, Ashton. We're on that case for 18 months or 18 years until there's mutual agreement that we've hit that milestone and that outcome that we promised. So, we're able to bring three great certainties in that area of uncertainty, and we free up a lot of their time to work on other cases, other issues, while we're taking care of these worst of the worst cases.
I mean, so the carriers are probably relatively fascinated by this because one, I mean, it seems unique, and two, it's really a way for them also to cap their exposure while also, I think, as you'd argue, provide better service to the claimant. Is that right?
Ashton, I mean, that is correct. And, and a lot of people focus on that fixed medical cost because that is nice. I mean, on these huge cases, as soon as they sign the contract, they're able to reserve the medical on it through maximum medical improvement. It cannot change. Whatever happens during the course of the contract that's related to that claim, even if we didn't foresee it coming, we take the risk of managing that, and it doesn't change our outcome guarantee. We're still obligated to get them to that outcome guarantee. So that brings great certainty, but there is a peace of mind that allows them. They're claims professionals, and these are the real outlying claims. They require so much of them that a lot of times as they're trying to manage these outliers, they're not able to get to the other significant cases on their book. And we're able to take that off the page, handle all of this for them so that we handle these outliers. They can handle the other severe cases they're managing. And it really allows them to deliver the best possible outcome on every case that their clients have brought to them. And that does bring a lot of peace of mind and satisfaction and hopefully client satisfaction from their standpoint.
And I could imagine that the way that a work comp adjuster is going to handle a soft tissue injury is going to be very different and require very different skill sets and knowledge, doctors, practitioners, whomever it could be, to actually handle the treatment, and when compared to one of those catastrophic injuries. So, I mean, it seems to be a very different thing. Now, are you is Paradigm a kind of first mover in the space, or are there many other in the field doing this? Kind of walk me through the industry for this kind of value-based partnership.
Absolutely. No, it's really unique. And that's where Dr. Cope was really visionary in starting this. And there was nothing like it. It was his vision and experience that led him to do it. And for 30 plus years, we've pioneered the space and gotten better and better. We have more data on catastrophic injury than really any company or entity in the world. Because it's all we've been focused on for over 30 years of being able to do this. And so, it is very, very unique. A hard part of the job, and everyone should say hard, it's just challenging, is for new clients and new carriers to not only explain what we are, but what we aren't. Again, it's not lost portfolio transfer. We don't buy out cases. We hand it back to them for lifetime settlement when we hit the outcome achievement. And so we have to be really, really good partners all throughout this, realizing that they have an obligation to their client. And if we mess up, they're going to get asked, why did you bring in this third party to work on this? It's a huge leap of faith and trust, Ashton, with these most sensitive of cases. And so there's a high degree of obligation and responsibility on our arm to communicate well, to make sure the families, the workers, all of the medical providers understand what we do and how we do it. And then we need to deliver at a very high level to bring this all home in a way that's mutually beneficial to all parties.
Given the uniqueness and the complexity of this, I think it would be helpful for the listeners. Are you able to provide some sort of like an example or a quick walkthrough of how this claim from beginning to hopefully end progresses and where Paradigm fits in?
Absolutely. The call comes in and there's been, just a catastrophic case. And again, these are the worst of the worst. It's easy to know what these cases are because they rise immediately. So what we would like to do with our partners is get involved as quickly as possible. Because what we will do is send out, we call them a network manager, Ashton. It's a nurse case manager, but a highly trained nurse case manager. They have 18 months of extensive training in catastrophic care and dealing with families in a lot of aspects of these cases that are unique in that, they don't just devastate a person, they devastate the family. And so we'll get a network manager on site, usually within 24 hours, almost always within 48 hours, to meet with the family, to meet with the medical team. If there's an attorney involved, we meet with them really to lay the groundwork and explain that the carrier is not offshooting this to some third party to go cheap. They've brought in experts to help with this. And so within about 5 to 6 days of that first meeting, we have what we call a post on-site call where that network manager will assemble whatever medical directors we need. So if say it's a car accident where there's a spinal cord injury and a brain injury, we'll have a medical director specializing in each of those areas on the call, and we'll begin to chart a course with the whole clinical team for how do we get this person well and get them back to the point where we can offer an outcome guarantee. If we can't, or we don't think it's quite significant enough of a case, we'll tell the carrier that and let them handle it. But if we move forward, we'll spend the next 20 days or so putting a plan together. We're helping manage the care. We're paying all of the medical bills, and we put together a contract for that client with the medical cost, with our outcome guarantees, and our plan of action to get there. And we will present that to the carrier. We have a call. It usually ranges from an hour to an hour and a half where we present the file and they question us on every aspect of that case. And at that point, they make a decision. Do they want to sign and move forward with it? Or do they want us to return the case to them? And there's no pressure or obligation. If they decide not to move forward, we return the files. We ask that they reimburse us for any bills we paid, but they move forward with it. But if they decide to sign that contract, we become a partner working that plan, working it through to outcome achievement, keeping them involved along the ways of everything that's transpiring. As I said earlier, Ashton, if something goes sideways, if there's a complexity, some complication that arises that's tied to that case, we take it on. It doesn't change the outcome guarantee. It doesn't change our price. We manage that. And then as we approach what we believe is outcome achievement, usually about 60 days out, we'll notify the client that we think we're almost there. And we begin having meetings about that. We talk about what needs to be done to get there. And then once we successfully reach outcome achievement, we put together all the files, we hand that case back to the client so that they can move on to the lifetime settlement piece.
Sure. Now, is outcome achievement synonymous or somehow related to, MMI, maximum medical improvement, or how do you determine outcome achievement?
Absolutely. And that's how that's basically our term for maximum medical improvement. And so, I'll use the case of a spinal cord injury. If we offer a release to return to work, which we will, I mean, we're good at getting these people back to work, we'll not only have that main outcome guarantee, but there are sub outcomes and functional outcomes that guide the path. Usually on a contract, there are between 12 and 20 sub outcomes. So say in the case of a spinal cord injury, you would have skin care management, bowel and bladder management, training and how to effectively use wheelchair or other devices. And these get marked off along the pathway to that outcome achievement. And so we know we're making progress. We're able to reinforce with our clients that we're making that progress. And then, again, as we hit that outcome achievement or maximum medical improvement plateau, we all talk about it. We begin planning for it because the handoff of this case coming back is really critical. A lot of trust and confidence and faith in our team has been built with the family, with the injured worker, and we want to be sure none of that is lost as we hand this case back. So there's a high degree of integration and communication that takes place. But ultimately, we're able to hand this case back in a far better place, we hope, and our experience tells us we're able to do than hopefully that family ever expected they might get to. And that's really the satisfaction of what we do.
Yeah, usually when you think about a contract, right, up front, you're thinking, hey, this is just the dollars and cents of it, right? We're going to value it at this and it's going to cap you at that. And there you go. But it sounds like that contract has a lot more and it's really claimant focused as well. You mentioned all the different, obviously goals, sub goals and check boxes that you're trying to get that individual to MMI. But that's really fascinating, Jim.
Yeah, well, thanks. And it is, the satisfaction comes in that, I mentioned all of the certainties we're able to bring. The one we're most proud of, though, is, these are very difficult injuries, and the insurance industry historically gets between 6 and 7% of these types of injuries back to work. Milliman, the actuarial firm, just reaffirmed a study last year regarding our results and confirmed that we're able to get about 40% of these people back to work. And so, it's phenomenal. Obviously for the carrier, because indemnity payments on someone who's able to work and provide are much better than for someone who isn't. But at the end of the day, for this family, this is the worst moment of their lives. It was a mom or dad planning to go to a PTA meeting or a ball game that night, and they wind up in the intensive care unit. And we're able to help them put a life back together that's productive, that's meaningful, and get them back to a point that allows them to not only live, but truly thrive in the remainder of their days.
So I work with a ton of work comp carriers on subrogation claims, right? So tangentially kind of related to this, but ultimately we see a lot of it. But one thing I've seen recently is relatively even more now than prior to obviously the COVID era, with hiring issues, we've seen quite a bit of issues by some newer adjusters in setting adequate reserves and really taking a look at that injury and determining, hey, what is the amount that we're likely going to pay out so that we can make a game plan, so we can put this together. It sounds like Paradigm also, you have a lot of data and you use a lot of, you look into the numbers and you're able to use experience and kind of the system that you all have built to be able to give probably a better assessment than the carrier can, or at least a more specific one as to how to get to that outcome-based result or that maximum medical improvement. Would that be about right?
Yeah, Ashton, and you're spot on. It's interesting that you bring in the COVID era, because these have always been difficult to reserve and to reserve accurately, because these cases are so dynamic and so clinically challenging. But, it used to be you sat in a cube area with 60 people around and you could ask for help and you could noodle and you could brainstorm. And, now so many people are sitting at home and sitting with just in an area with only 2 or 3 people around, and you lose that experience. And so we are able to bring, over 30 years of experience in handling these cases. We give reserving guidance right from the outset. And it's really based on, again, 30 years of handling these types of injuries and knowing the trajectory. And then at outcome achievement, one of the values we're able to bring is we also provide a lifetime medical cost estimate. Because even though we're handling this case back, we know everything that's been done. We know historically how these cases have tracked. And so we're able to provide guidance from that point forward as well in our best estimate and really a scientifically educationally based estimate of where this case is going to go. And so that brings greater certainty for our carrier partners as well, because they're able to look into the future with greater confidence than they've been able to do themselves.
And certainty and clarity is hugely important for these carriers. I mean, realistically, because I can tell you, we've seen a number of cases more recently than in the past where we get the case and either one of two things happens. One, we get the case, we're told that, hey, we're probably looking at a $70,000 total payment for indemnity and medical. Next thing you know, we start working it up. We're investigating. We're handling the case. We may need to cut costs on experts here or there to try to stay within the appropriate guidelines so that we're not spending more than, 10, 20% of the total potential return on experts. And then next thing you know, we find out, oh, you know what? This was reserved wrong. We're actually going to incur, $550,000, at which point it's, we're working our way forward. We're in a different place. Similarly speaking, quite often we get cases where we work the heck out of it. We're expecting this to be some gigantic catastrophic injury. I had one, just a week and a half ago where it was a severe burn situation. Next thing you know, we're told, hey, this is reserved out for, Cat $1.52 million. And then we find out, well, oh no, he reached MMI, the burns healed somehow. And, there weren't many issues and we paid out, 93,000, right? So it's, obviously way more important on your end and on the client's end to have appropriate reserves and expectations in that file. But, I even see it on my front that, reserving is, it's a science, right? I mean, it could be an art and a science, but I mean, really it requires a true understanding of how these things play out and the ability and the data to be able to come up with those numbers.
Ashton, you're right. And that is the challenge of these cases. It's not the carrier's fault. It's no one's fault. As I said earlier, we're talking about 3 out of every 1,000 cases are a true catastrophic case. And so, if the example I often use is, I'll talk to a prospect and I'll say, when you or anyone in your home goes grocery shopping Thanksgiving week, you probably shop a lot differently than you do the rest of the week. You're not going to buy that much every week. You couldn't afford it. Stuff would get wasted. Carriers can't prepare and supply and have all the resources necessary to handle 3 out of 1,000 cases. So when they do arise, a lot of times you don't have all of the resources, you don't have the experience and knowledge, you don't have the data at your hands. We're able to bring all of that to bear on these true outlying cases. And since it's all we've done for 30 years and it's all we do, we're able to bring a high degree of specialization, of education, of knowledge, of data, and that again is a great value, because with that uncertainty, really what our carrier partners want to know is they're doing the right things at the right time, first of all, to help that injured worker and their family, but then also their obligation to the company to do it in a way that is cost effective, that utilizes resources in the best possible way, and that at the end of the day drives the best possible outcome. And we're able to partner with them to do that.
So jumping subjects a little bit more about the type of customers, who are your typical clients? Are these the big comp carriers? Are they mid-sized, smaller carriers, or is it everyone in between?
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody, when they hear catastrophic cases, I mean, you think of the construction workers and you think of truck drivers, and certainly, yes, they have those cases, but probably the biggest driver of our catastrophic cases are automobile accidents. So you think of any employer out there that has any employee driving in an automobile. Well, that's basically any employer that you have. So it can happen from the smallest cafe diner to the largest construction firm. So yeah, our clients range from the largest carriers in the country to the smallest. And it's really anyone that insures anyone that can have a catastrophic claim, which is every carrier out there, may have a need for us. And so, the largest carriers out there may see 160 of these a year. We handle nearly 1,000 of them a year. And so, we're able to, again, bring a view and a palette and display of resources that others simply can't. And so we're able to be a great partner on these cases when they need us.
Yeah, so a little softball question for you here. Give me the benefits. What's your quick pitch when you're talking to a new carrier or a new potential client? When you're asked, what are the benefits of that workers' compensation carrier using Paradigm?
Absolutely. And what I would say, if it's in short, I talk about the 3 certainties: that you get the call that you have this catastrophic case, and everyone's mind goes to, how are we going to estimate the cost? How are we going to manage all of the care that goes into this case while we're doing our other cases as well? And then if we do both of those things, how do we really know what we're getting on the backside? And we're able to answer all 3 of those questions, and that we're able to provide a guaranteed medical cost. We take that legwork away from you so that you can focus on the cases you can handle well, and you're able to get the best outcome on all of them. And then we tell you what you're going to get at the end of the day. And we can't leave that case. We have no power to unilaterally declare outcome. It has to be mutual agreement that outcome has been achieved. So, you're going to get all 3 of those certainties on these cases that, right now seem wildly unpredictable and uncertain. And so by partnering with us, you get all of those along with our expertise and everything we bring to the case.
Thanks, Jim. Now, are there any drawbacks or other difficulties that you faced or that you see with work comp carriers working with companies like Paradigm and having value-based partnerships?
The drawbacks, sometimes it comes into the perception with their clients of why are you bringing someone else into this big case and what happens. There can be drawbacks. It's a risk-based product. I mean, sometimes these cases resolve quicker and better than others. Sometimes they don't resolve nearly as quickly as we'd like or they would like. And so, there is that element of, what if it resolves quickly and we didn't get everything we paid for? And on any individual case, that can happen. But you're also taking out the uncertainty of the worst of the worst. The case you think is going to be a $2 million case that becomes a $9 million case. And so like any risk product, and this is the world insurance carriers live in, that homeowner has the year where they have no hail damage. And so they wonder why they don't get some premium back. And it's, well, you've got to put that premium aside because sooner or later those cases are coming, and for you and others. And so, it's just understanding and really what the product is and what the relationship is meant to be. In a Paradigm, we take a real responsibility upon ourselves to understand that, to make sure we're clear on it and bring clarity to the relationship and how it works right from day one.
Now let's step into the shoes for a moment of the individual claimant, the injured worker. Obviously, most people understand how that process works, at least those listening in here, when they're just working directly with their comp carrier or the TPA for the comp carrier. How does, for the man on the street, for that injured person, how does their experience differ when they're working with a company such as Paradigm versus not?
Absolutely. Right from the start, and we're not always able to meet with the injured worker right away because by the nature of these injuries, sometimes they're unconscious, they're in ICU. But by the time they're able to realize Paradigm's involved, they're going to see two big differences. That network manager, that specially trained, catastrophically trained nurse will have had interaction with family, with medical providers, and giving reassurance and comfort in a way that goes far beyond regular case management. We also put what we call a community support specialist. These are really, they're trained in psychosocial care, and they come in to help support the family. As I said earlier, no one expects to see these cases happen. And so there's going to be a community support specialist on every case to help that family continue with mortgage payments, continue getting the kids to school, hooking them up with resources locally to help make sure that the family unit is intact, and also setting up proper expectations for these cases. The reality, Ashton, on these catastrophic cases is so often normal is forever changed. There's going to be a new normal, and getting to a point where the family can begin to understand and then accept and work toward that is a huge part of these cases. And so that's something that our community sports specialists are uniquely trained to help with the injured worker, with their family, and bring about an entire support system that allows for the best possible recovery. And then, the third thing I think they'll see is a coordination of medical and clinical care that is above and beyond what normal workers' compensation can do. Our medical directors are not treating physicians, but they consult with the treating physicians at whatever facility that person may be at. And our medical directors are experienced, they're published, they present at conferences and seminars. So typically doctors around the country know our medical directors and are more than happy to receive the help and guidance and consult help that we're able to provide to drive these cases. So, back to your original point, I think what that injured worker is going to see is a degree of care, of resources that encompass not just the medical piece, but the psychosocial piece, the family elements, everything that's necessary to take what is probably the worst moment of their life and begin to craft a pathway to a future that is hopefully, and our goal is to make it something that exceeds any expectation they could have had when they first realized the unfortunate event that happened.
Now let's move forward. Like, what do we think the future holds for the work comp industry and value-based partnerships such as this? Do we think that this is going to become more standardized in the industry? Have you thought about what the future holds, and what are your thoughts there?
You bet. And that is a huge part of what we're trying to do. And the value-based relationships are so critical because we've actually gotten a couple of our partners at Shirley Ryan, at Brooks, these are rehabilitation centers, to work with us and offer us value-based care and packages. So when we partner with them on a case, just as we make a guaranteed cost and an outcome guarantee, they will do the same for us. They say, we've worked with you, we trust you, we know the partnership that happens. So we're gonna help you on this case at this fixed cost until this outcome is achieved. And so we really see that as the face and really the future of medical care. If we're going to contain costs, if we're going to get away from, a mentality that looks at how many visits versus what you get for those visits, this is an opportunity to partner, to come together. And when we're able to do that, when we can do that with our partners, we're able to deliver that value to our carriers, to their injured workers, and really provide exceptional outcomes, because we're all focused on the same thing, and that is the finish line. And when we can quit focusing on other things and just agree that this is the point we need to get this injured worker to, and we're going to do whatever it takes to get them there, really everyone benefits in that. So, as we look to the future, we want to grow that type of relationship with as many of our clinical partners as possible, because we believe that's what's going to drive the greatest value in the long term for our carrier partners and their injured workers.
Now, this is the Subrogation Support Network, so I feel like we need to briefly touch on how this can relate to subrogation. And the thing that really fascinates me here is that it is different, right? And there are questions, right? What is going to be recoverable on various claims and outcome-based plans and value-based partnership? And ultimately, it'll be a huge thing just nationwide right now is, we've been asked by numerous carriers and work comp carriers and other entities to take a look and tell them, what's recoverable? Are nurse case management fees recoverable, right? I mean, what is associated with the actual treatment under the state statute that would be recoverable as a comp lien? And every state's different. And interestingly enough, MWL, my firm, we publish a 50-state survey on what benefits are recoverable. And the answer is really varied. It's always state by state. You look at the chart, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't prepare one of these, so I'm just going to read one. Let's take a look. Let's pull up, Florida, right? Section 440 provides that a workers' compensation carrier is entitled to recover the amount of compensation benefits paid or to be paid as provided by subsection 3. Goes on to state that the lien is upon a judgment of any settlement recovered to the extent that the court may determine to their pro rata share of compensation and medical benefits, ... Basically, you look into this and you're reviewing this and trying to determine what is compensation. And in Florida, compensation means the money allowance payable to an employee or to his dependents as provided in this chapter, right? And then you look at what is medical. And it's really an in-depth review, but what we've come to find is that in many states where there's no regulation on point, nurse case management fees are arguably recoverable as a part of the lien. And it's really unique and interesting to see something like Paradigm, where you all are providing services that go far above and beyond what a nurse case manager would, right? You are truly providing services that are a benefit to that claimant. And, I'm excited to see how that plays out in the subrogation field as things go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, the beauty and the challenge of workers' compensation, as is, 50 states, so 50 different sets of rules and guidelines. And that is, I wish I could speak with greater certainty, because, there is a line between what is, medical benefit, what is administrative, what is consultative. Some states are very broad. Some are very specifically narrow. And so that is, a challenge of what we do. But that is something that we not only work with our clients on, but, we actively work with jurisdictions to explain what it is we're doing, and the fact that everything we do is moving toward the best possible care for that injured worker and getting them to a point of optimal outcome. And so, we're willing to roll up our sleeves and work in those states that are silent on it, or, that may have sort of partial determinations of what is and isn't, because we would like to educate them and on what it is that we do and how we do it. Because at the end of the day, if it does come into the realm of subrogation, we want the best possible result for our client as possible. We want to remove as many impediments and barriers there are to working for us, because we believe strongly, Ashton, that at the end of the day, we're providing a medical benefit to help drive the best possible outcome and working to do everything we can to make that family as whole as possible. And we don't want there to be any reason for our clients to hesitate or have any uncertainty about working with us to achieve those great results.
Absolutely. And I think a couple years down the road, we should 100% have another podcast episode where we go into the case law that's probably going to have developed in different items that go forward relating to outcome-based treatment and subrogation rights existent therein. Case law is not all there right now, so I think that would be relatively premature, but it's fascinating to think about. I mean, obviously, I have a podcast on this. I'm a nerd for this stuff, but it's something that, when I dream about subrogation. So I think that's not true, but
I get it. I get it. But you did touch on something. I mean, the value-based approach, it is a different way to look at care. And so that changes a lot of the, for lack of a better term, and to be a little self-plugging here, the paradigms that we've dealt with in the past. And so it really is going to cause a rethinking and an evolution. And it's why we value people like you and your firm who dive into this and who really understand the nuances and all of the key points that need to be understood, because we want to help support and drive changing the thinking and changing the way this is viewed, so that really that entire concept of value is rewarded in ways that again remove as many barriers as possible to providing the best possible care for these people that need it the most.
That's a shifting paradigm. I mean, that's why great name. Who came up with that?
I'm going to give that to Dr. Cope again. I would think he had a say in it, so it really does fit.
Beautiful. Well, hey, that's really all that I have today. Is there anything that you want to add, Jim, before we kind of cut this thing off?
No, Ashton, I just want to let you know, I appreciate speaking with you. I know really how valued what your firm does and in getting out knowledge and information, how critical that is. And so it's an honor to be a part of that. Always happy to talk about Paradigm and the work that we do to help these injured workers and their families. And so really just thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for joining. I'm sure we'll have to do it again in the future. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you at all those mutual conferences and conventions that we go to and speak at.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, Ashton.
All right. Well, this is Ashton Kirsch. Let's wrap this one up. Coming to you from Hartford, Wisconsin with the Subrogation Support Network podcast, and signing off. Have a great one, everybody.